Good morning or good evening, whenever you may be listening to this. We are Group 5, and today we're going to be talking about the world that surrounds the word society.
Okay, so what does society mean, by the way? Like, I kind of know what it is, but I want to make sure I have the right definition in mind.
Well, by definition, society is an organized life in groups, typical of humans and animals.
I would like to add that as human beings, we are very social creatures with a desire and need to be in close contact with others. Beginning with the family, human life is one of interdependence and sharing of physical, mental, and spiritual items. I believe this brought about the concept of society.
But you know what? In political science, society is often mainly used in reference to human interactions, generally in contrast to the state or overall rule of government within territory. Like, for example, privileges of dominating positions, which are brought into higher being by extra economic power.
Social scientists differentiate societies based on a variety of factors. Lenski, a sociologist, differentiates societies into four levels based on their level of technology, communication, and economy: hunters, gatherers, simple agricultural, advanced agricultural, and industrial.
That's because the characteristics of society are membership related to purpose or a common goal, characteristic patterns of organization, defining relationships among members, and social norms of acceptable behavior within the society.
Yeah, exactly. Since we know what the characteristics of a society are, we should dive down a bit into the other words that come to mind.
Well, we're all pretty aware of what civilization and race is.
Yeah, but for those who don't know what those two terms mean, a civilization is just a society with a central government and social classes. Race is an ethnic group assumed to have biological basis.
Exactly, but there's another word that comes to mind when thinking about those terms.
And what would that be exactly, since I can't think of any other words that come to mind?
Well, for the last term, it's ethnocentrism.
And what is that exactly?
It's quite simple. It's the tendency to view one's own culture as best and to judge the behavior and beliefs of culturally different people by one's own standards. So, for example, it's like saying that my culture is better than yours.
Okay, well, it's good to learn something new.
I agree, but what about acculturation and assimilation? It comes up a lot, but I don't fully understand what it is.
I believe that acculturation is when people move from one country to another and pick up things from the culture that they have landed in. So, for example, language is something that someone will have to pick up. Assimilation is when the need of fitting in and forming relationships with the new culture outweighs the importance of keeping the previous culture.
Well, I'm sure that most of us want to be able to learn more about what cultures are, but are there other ways that we'll be able to pass down to other people or generations? Like, is there a term for it?
Yeah, there is. It's called cultural learning. The definition of this is just that, being able to pass down a culture in a harmless way down to another generation. Yet, when referring to this, we aren't referring to their biological makeup at all.
Ah, I see. Well, thank you for filling us in on that bit of information.
Now, let's head on to the final section. We all already have a solid definition of what culture is. Now, let's discuss how it can be accepted around the world.
I would assume and hope that it is accepted and treated with respect alongside other cultures, right?
Well, for most cultures, it is. And there's a term for that, and it's called cultural relativism. It's the idea that a person's beliefs and practices should be understood based on a person's culture.
So, if I were to find someone else's culture as problematic, it would be seen as the opposite of that?
Yep, that is correct. And if you're accepting of their food and use of slang of choice, then you're showing simple examples of cultural relativism.
Well, thank you, Tanisha, for that positive outlook on cultures.
You're very welcome.
Now we need to talk about one of the most common terms used in correlation to culture as a whole, which is cultural imperialism.
Didn't Christopher Columbus do something like that upon arriving to new land?
Well, yeah, that's basically what he did, yet the core definition of the word is quite simple. It's when one group thinks that their culture is of higher value than another, so in return they impose their culture onto another group for the purpose of spreading their culture.
So, would you say that Disney spreading their business out to other countries for a higher profit is a sign of cultural imperialism?
Yep, it basically is. Now, if that company were to be able to leave the country alone and let them do their own business, then it wouldn't be cultural imperialism.
Okay, so what about like national culture and international culture? Isn't it the same thing? So why are there two of them?
Well, they are close, yet they are two different terms. National is referring to like a small group in a large community, so like an age group or generation, something that's small and compact of a community. Meanwhile, international is more on the larger scale, so instead of it being a small community, it's more country based. Take, for example, specific coming of age ceremonies that are extremely common in Spain and Japan.
Well, thank you for the explanation.
No problem.
Okay, I think that wraps up everything. Thank you all for listening. We hope you learned something new. And again, this is Group 5 signing out.